Today we're going to be going over all of the classes in Visions of Mana, as well as their costumes and transformation to help you pick the best class for you. I want to preface all of this by saying, play the characters you enjoy playing. Visions of Mana is not a crazy hard game on your first playthrough, so don't feel like you have to min and max everything. Maybe save that for your new game plus. But I would be dumb to think that some of you guys aren't here for that, so I'll just quickly go over what I've been doing and who I think is the strongest character. I feel like it's undisputably the Moon Vessel Morley, because he's going to be just a crit monster, especially when you get into this second tier where you get to raise your crit by 70% during battle. Pretty much all of the hits you're going to do are going to be critting, and then when you get to his whole triangle ability where he repeatedly slashes, it just makes the game feel like easy mode. And so this is probably going to be the first few elemental vessels you unlock, so you're going to have this opportunity from the start to play as Morley. Another thing, I did like the cheese video on my tips and tricks, which I'll have linked at the end of this, where you get one of the strongest weapons to start out with Careena, and so that's going to be the Mystic Spear. And so that is another option to start out really strong early and play her on the water elemental vessel. I chose water just because you get the other few later in the game, but once you unlock the other few, you can sort of figure out how you want to spec her out and build her. And then lastly, I've been running Val, and mainly because of these saber abilities, and the AI is very good at controlling Val and making sure that they put whatever saber ability weakness that your enemies have on whoever you're playing as, and I primarily play as Morley. So you really could spec into these and get all of these from the different, I believe they're on the longsword classes. And then once you have those spec'd out, you could explore other weapons since they'll transfer over. But that's just a quick rundown. I haven't really experimented a lot with Palmeena just yet, or the final character, so I don't have much info on how they are going to play. Listen, I saved all of my elemental vessels till I got all of them unlocked, so that way I can get all the transformations for this specific video. So I have been severely hindering myself during my playthrough, so that way I can get the B-roll footage all close together. And so I'm going to experiment more with these other two characters. I'm likely going to be playing with Palmeena and her scythe, just because I like that weapon and I want to test to see if I can make her viable in my party. Now, the way that I would go about selecting the best class for you would be find which character you like the most. So for me, for instance, right now it was Careena because I really like her design, and every character is going to have 3 different weapons. So once you find which character you like the most, then I would start diving into which weapons playstyle you like. Do I like Careena's spear? Do I like her with her fans? Or do I like her with her gauntlets? And then once I figure out which of these 3 weapon playstyles I like, that's when I would start speccing out my character to accommodate and complement that particular weapon. So I have the spear because I have the Mystic Spear, and one thing with Careena I saw is that later on she has an ability that she gains stat increases when she decreases the enemy's stats. And so what I would do now is start speccing out different things that are going to decrease the enemy's stats. I think there's one that decreases their attack, and then once I have that, I'm going to get attack percent increase. And so this is the kind of thinking that I'd really recommend you guys use when it comes to like building something unique to the class that you like to play, especially if you don't just want to play what is quote unquote meta. You can find a way to make all of these characters work if you like them enough, especially with the 3 different weapon options that they have. If you enjoy JRPG content like this, I really would appreciate it if you help me get this video to 100 likes and consider subscribing to the channel. But now let's hop back into the video. Now we're gonna hop into showing all the transformations, and I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of what that character class does. Now we can start discussing Palmeena's classes, and we're gonna start with the first one you unlock, which is going to be the boot. And that is going to be of the wind elemental vessel, and that class is known as the Runseer. It's described as a fighter who can unleash a whirlwind of kicks to crush lower level enemies. This class can also learn abilities that support their allies in battle. Next up is going to be the moon elemental vessel, and this class is named Majesty, and they describe it as a melee moon class equipped with boots that specialize for combat. They unleash powerful stomping moves and offensive magic to stop adversaries in their tracks. And then lastly, we have the fire elemental vessel, and this class is called the Maskeer. And the description states that it's a fire aligned fighter that can strengthen their normal and special attacks through sprinting. They're also excellent mages, attacking enemies with magic from a long distance. Next up are the scythe-based weapon classes, and the first is going to be the water elemental vessel, and this class is called the Grand Diviner. It's described as swinging their large scythe towards opponents to send them flying. This class demonstrates its mastery over water by ruthlessly freezing their enemies. The next is going to be the light elemental vessel, and the class is named the Archmage, and it's described as a light class that specializes in taking down boss monsters with their hefty sickle. And I know this class gets increased damage towards bosses, and so I can see this being maybe a build that you swap to for boss fights, and boss fights only, then maybe use another class with the scythe. Finally, we have the dark elemental vessel, and this class is called the Reaper, and it makes sense because they are wielding a sickle. And this is the Dark Alliance class that is equipped with a fearsome sickle. They can learn abilities to let them recover health after defeating an enemy with special attacks. And the last weapon for Palmeena is, I'm not sure if this is a mace or a whip. There is a word for this, and I don't think it's a whip, but I'm gonna call it a whip just because I'm not intelligent enough to know those big words. So this is gonna be of the wood elemental vessel, the earth elemental vessel. And this class is known as the Magus, and in tune with the earth element, these magic users wield a giant flail, flails, not whips, flails, and conjures large boulders to squash their foes. And the last one is going to be of the wood elemental vessel known as the Beast Leader, and this is described as having tamed various monsters to call forth in battle. This wood-aligned class can increase the strength of its summoning spells and use flails to overpower its foes. Now we're going to move into Morley's classes, starting with his tri-dagger wielding similar to Zoro from One Piece. And the first that you're going to get is going to be the wind elemental vessel known as the Nomad. Wielding 3 nimble knives, these travelers can increase their party's critical hit rate and provide other helpful effects in combat. The next elemental vessel you'll unlock is going to be the Moon elemental vessel, and this class is known as the Nightblade, and probably the strongest class in the game and the strongest class for Morley. And this is described as an enigmatic class with the ability that can trigger extra effects when a critical hit lands. With their triple knives, they punish their foes in the name of the moon. And the last elemental vessel with the tri-wielding class is going to be the Earth elemental vessel, and its class name is the Ninja Master. This is described as a mysterious class that uses both knives, shurikens, and specializes in moves to catch the opponent off guard. They're elusive by trade, and they are boistered by mana of the earth. Next, let's discuss Morley's flute-based classes. The first one that you're going to unlock is going to be of the water elemental vessel, and this is named the Aesthetic? I don't know how to pronounce this, but the description is that it's favored by the water element. This class has been rigorously trained in the art of stunning enemies with charged attacks. They wield slim canes and a deck of cards to protect themselves in combat. And honestly, I feel like with this design, I feel like Morley has the best designs in the game, honestly. But this one in particular, I think is crazy. The next elemental vessel you're going to unlock is going to be the light one. And this class is known as Sovereign. And it's described as a light class that uses its trick cane in battle. Okay, this is a cane and not a flute. Okay, my bad. But it uses its trick cane in battle to give opponents a performance they'll never forget. They can also reduce the damage the party takes from physical attacks. And lastly, you're going to get the Dark Elemental Vessel, and this class is known as the Soothsayer, and it's described as a consultant of darkness who takes advantage of status effects, using their cane to deal extra damage to foes affected by them. Now let's move into the last class for Morley, and that's going to be the Katana. And I feel like this, Morley, I gotta keep saying it, Morley just has all of the cool weapons and costumes and everything. And so this class is going to be of the Fire Elemental Vessel, and it's known as the Rogue. Armed with the katana, this fire class is a force to be reckoned with. It primarily uses trap-based moves to cause damage and increase its own power. Next is going to be the Wood Elemental Vessel, and this class is known as the Samurai, and it's described as an adept swordsman who's one with the wood element. This class can strike enemies from a distance and also has the potential to reduce damage taken when attacked. And there is no third elemental vessel for the katana weapon, just because his base weapon is the katana, and that goes the same for all of the other characters. Every class has 3 different archetypes or classes that you can play with that weapon, except for the base one that you have when you're wielding it. And so that's why you'll see not all of them have 3 different elemental vessels to equip. The next character that we're going to dive into is going to be Careena. And we're going to start with her fan-based classes. And the first is going to be of the wind elemental vessel, and this class is named Dancer. The description states it's a class that inflicts status effects on enemies and lowers their stats with their wave of its fans. Blessed by the wind, their movements are light as a feather. The next fan class is going to be of the moon elemental vessel named Moon Charter, and this class is described as a devoted observer of the celestial bodies. They can increase their teammates' critical hit rate and fling their opponents with a wave of their fan. And the last elemental vessel using the fan is going to be the wood elemental vessel, and this class is named the Conjurer, and this is described as medium of the elemental wood. They use their fans to summon monsters to fight in battle and can also attack in tandem with Romco. Next, we'll move into the spears for Val, and the first spear class you unlock is going to be the water elemental vessel, and this is known as the Dragon Master. Unfortunately, I don't have the transformation. This is the only transformation I don't have, but I will be showing you what the armor looks like. And these water type fighter weapons of choice is a spear. They excel at taking down certain monster species and launching their opponents into the air. The final spear class for Careena besides her base class is going to be of the light elemental vessel, and this class is known as Star Lancer. With Ramco by your side, those who use this class can call upon the element of light to bolster its party's prowess, so this is likely going to be a high buffing class. I did see someone in the previous comments of another video mentioning that don't underestimate the power of debuffing your opponents, and I wonder if they're referring to the spear playstyle with Careena, where you get those buffs for debuffing your enemy. If that's what they're referring to, that is something that I do want to test to see how strong it can get. Now we're going to move into her gauntlet classes, and the first gauntlet class you're going to unlock is going to be of the fire elemental vessel known as the Divine Fist. This is described as a fiery pugilist that gains multiple supportive effects after executing a class of strikes in battles. Their fists fly faster than the eye can see. Next, you're going to unlock the earth elemental vessel, which is going to be the warrior monk class, and this is described as a skilled fighter that embodies the tenacity of the earth, learning abilities that provide items with beneficial effects if they have the stat increases in place. And then the final elemental vessel you're going to unlock is going to be the dark, and that class is known as the Maverick. The description states that this class is commanding the mysterious powers of darkness, and the rebellious duelist increases the damage they inflict at the start of combat, instantly turning the tables in their favor. We're going to open up with Val and his longsword classes, and the first one is going to be the elemental vessel Wind, and it's named the Rune Knight. And so those who assume this class can imbue their blade with saber magic to improve their battle paralysis, harnessing the strength of the wind to make their greatsword feel as light as air. The next greatsword class is going to be with the water vessel, and that's going to be named Duelist. And wielding your heavy blades, the water-based class can make a perfect frontline fighter and can even stun opponents with powerful attacks. The last greatsword class is going to be of the dark elemental vessel, and that's going to be the Berserker. And it's going to be described as a raging fighter that gains strength as their health decreases. Nothing can withstand the swings of this greatsword wielding dark class. And I apologize, I wish that I could go more into description of what these classes do and go into their abilities, but that'll just make the video way too long, and this is primarily just to show off their costumes and transformations, not necessarily get into like a class tier list like I mentioned earlier. So rather than just showing you the B-roll of them transforming, I'm trying to provide a little bit of commentary for you guys to listen to. Next, we're going to hit the Lance classes when it comes to Val. And the first is going to be the Moon Elemental Vessel, and it's going to be a class called Aegis. The power of the moon allows this class to raise its defense in battle while wielding a lance and shield, which can also deal powerful strike attacks. The next elemental vessel is going to be Fire, and this class goes by Liege, and the description says it's attuned to the power of fire. This lance wielding class specializes in long-range magic. They can also use their shields to provide both offense and defensive support to their teammates. I'm interested to hear if anyone's experimented with just running a pure mage class. I haven't yet, but I did get some elemental abilities that allow you to quick cast certain magical abilities in succession as long as you have that specific elemental vessel equipped. So I'll be curious to see how testing has gone on that to see how strong just pure mage is. The last Lance class is going to be the Paladin. And so this stalwart defensor, and this is going to be of the light elemental vessel, but they're well equipped to fight and capable of learning healing moves to support their allies. Their lance is also going to glow with the awesome power of light. Lastly, we're going to move into the sword classes for Val, and this is going to be with the wood elemental vessel, and that class is named Weapon Master. This is going to specialize in charged up attacks and projectile based moves. This class is as unfaltering as a solid earth from which it gets its power from. And then the last sword class on Val's is going to be the Wood Elemental Vessel, and the name is hard to pronounce. It's Edelfray, and the description says that it's aligned with elements of the wood and masters of all the small sword. This class is excellent at airborne combat, and those who take on this class can learn abilities that target enemies' weaknesses. And the last character we have is Julei, and we're going to start with the Umbrella classes, and that's going to start with the Wind Elemental Vessel, and this class is known as the Piper, and it's described as with the power of wind, this class can use the umbrella to reduce the amount of damage the party receives from certain monster types and increase damage dealt to them. The next elemental vessel you'll have with this weapon is going to be the Wood, and that will be known as the Sage, who's described as a class that uses its wood affinity to teach full-handy enemies a lesson. They use their paracel of aerial combat and have abilities that can poison enemies. And lastly, you have the Dark Elemental Vessel, and this class is known as the Necromancer. Using the umbrella as a conduit of their dark mana power, this class reduces the amount of damage the party receives from certain monster types and increases the damage dealt to them. The next weapon, I would describe this as like a staff, and this is going to be of the Moon Elemental Vessel, and this class is called the Occultist. A moon class that can conjure up floral projectiles with a wand, staff, same thing, and use offensive magic to wipe out enemies. The next is the Water Elemental Vessel known as the Scholar, and this is going to wield your wand and attune to element of water. This class can reduce the amount of damage the party receives from certain monster types and increase the damage dealt to them. The final weapon type we have for Julei is going to be the Hammer, and this is going to start with the Fire Elemental Vessel known as the Gatekeeper. Wielding mighty hammers, these fire-aligned protectors can mitigate the damage dealt by certain monster types as well as heal allies. Next up, we have the Earth Element, and this class is known as the Hunter, and it's described as a vigilant scout that uses the giant hammer and class strikes to dish out large amounts of damage. This class can be attuned to the power of the earth. And then finally, we have the Light Elemental Vessel, and this class is known as the High Cleric, and it's described as a healing-focused class that harnesses the power of light. They can restore their allies' health or improve the team's healing capabilities. So that's going to wrap up all of the different classes within the game. I apologize that I wasn't able to go more in depth, but if you are looking for more in-depth tips here, check out this video that I'll have linked on one of these sides where I go into beginners tips and tricks, which does have some more advanced things for you to check out. But thank you for your time. I'll catch you in the next one.